the question that's on everybody's mind in real estate is, when is the market going to crash, right? And I mean, like, how many times have we actually heard that?
I probably wouldn't have to sell real estate, honestly,
2 years.
if I could collect
If we charged
$50 every time I heard it.
There you go, $50 every time we heard this. So we're going to start doing that, and we're going to talk about some surprising stuff today that actually surprised both of us.
Absolutely. But before we get into the meat of our show today, Happy New Year, everyone. We're so happy to be here today. Thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day. I mean, we're getting rain, but it's a good day to be alive in St. George.
Yeah. So if you don't recognize the voices, this is Jesse Paul with the Larkin Group, KW Realty, and I've got with us the infamous Jessica Taggart Marone.
Infamous.
Yeah. She is one of our favorites. In fact, this morning, the Mallory from Blue 4 Media said, "Oh, my favorite, Jessica's coming."
Thanks, Mallory. Thanks.
So
I'm excited to be here. I always love being on the show. Thanks for thinking of me when Jeremy's out of town. Jeremy's on a cruise right now with his family and in-laws, and he's been sending me all these pictures of this fantastic ship that they're enjoying. And, I'm excited for him. I'm like slightly jealous, but It's okay. Whenever he's going to get to be here. So thanks for having me.
Right. And so how was your New Year?
My New Year was very, very calm and boring, and that's okay. That's how I like them. And I think I decluttered like 4 bedrooms in my house over the Christmas holiday,
Really?
I think.
Well, actually, I think my wife did too, but she naturally did it as we were putting away all the Christmas.
Right.
It's amazing how much, I didn't realize how much Christmas stuff we had put out until we started putting it away.
Yeah, I know. It's like a sad look at, well, for me anyway, of my consumption, but no, it was great. And I didn't check off every box that I had to, of my to-dos prior to starting 2026. And I thought, that's just kind of an arbitrary goal, a deadline for all of us. And, but I do feel like every time you have a new year, it's a fresh start, and it's a time to abandon things that you don't want to have in your life, or traits that you don't want to possess. And I think it's very normal to be very reflective over your life at a new year, and goals that we can achieve. And home ownership is one of them for a lot of people, or making a move to a bigger home, smaller home. Moving to St. George, I mean, it's a very natural time to start contemplating that. And so, of course, people ask you, what's the market doing? How can I get prepped for achieving those goals? So that's kind of what started our conversation of what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, I've been looking at the market. Every January, the first week of January, I always go back and go, okay, what happened? How did it shake out? And I had anticipated something much different than actually happened.
Well, I did too. And I think what's interesting here is that the data is speaking one thing, and then in the field, so to speak, there's a different sense. And so how we can appreciate and understand that data and interpret it for buyers and sellers in the market, in the field, is where the challenge is, I think, or where it has felt challenging in this market of the last few years. So yeah, I was surprised too. Tell the audience what you shared with me this morning when we were talking about the.
So what I was talking about this morning is, because of the feeling of this last quarter, or the fall, I really expected that we would see the final numbers be that the market dropped just a little bit.
Just slightly.
Not a whole lot, because we had a pretty good spring.
We did. And honestly, I had a fabulous year. Wasn't my very, very best year, but it's been one of my better years. And so, which I'm so thankful for, but it is interesting because the data really did surprise me, for sure.
Yeah, and the reason for this is, so let me just start with this. When I look at the overall market from where sellers start their listing price to where they end, that's about a 95%. So they're getting about 95% of their asking price. But there's a lot of price reductions that are happening between there.
So can I speak to that really quickly? Because I think what people, when they hear that, if they're not in the industry, they assume that that is the very first price that they start with, and then they're going to get 95 on average, 95% of an offer of what they start with. And that can be a little bit misleading because it really means that wherever that price is when they get the offer.
Nope. The 95 is from the original.
Bless it, Jesse. Oh, from one.
From the original.
Oh, the original. Okay.
Yeah, so
got it.
From where they started to where they ended up. So, and I would, so when that's true, I would expect that.
The other one. Sorry.
I would expect the market to be adjusting a little bit.
Sure.
When I'm seeing that many price reductions. Now, from what you're talking about, the final price to sold price is actually 98.
Oh, okay.
So which goes to what we were talking about. When I start digging into the data, it's actually a pretty stable market. Very stable, pretty strong, in fact, when sellers, if they choose the right price from the beginning, are getting 98% of their asking price.
Right.
What makes it feel soft or feel what's making, well, there's a couple things that are making buyers feel scared. Number one is the news, is the naysayers saying, and in fact, including myself, thinking that the market should be correcting because it feels so unaffordable.
Well,
and yet,
I mean, the reality is that pricing is astronomically high. Historically, It's never been higher, and so it can absolutely feel that accurate.
So I just looked this up again. Let me give you a little teaser. In 2000, I went back to 2019 before the market went crazy. Mm-hmm. The average sales price in 2019 was $357,000. Take a guess what it is today.
The average?
Average.
600.
643.
Yeah.
So literally double what it was in 2019. And in 2019, mortgage rates were about 4.5%. So we're dealing with double the prices and 2% more interest rate.
Right.
So we're literally at the most unaffordable time in history. So that's why people expect that the market should correct a little bit. And yet, here in southern Utah, it did not. It actually went up by like 1.16% year over year. So,
which is a great thing because, I mean, it can feel challenging to get into this market, right? And it's only it feels more challenging to do so. But we, of course, are going to feel the fluctuations of any market. And yet, because we are such a desirable area of the world, we get to benefit from that insulation a little bit more than just a traditional market or, you know. And so people dream of moving to St. George. They dream of retiring here. They dream of having a second home here together with their grandkids. And so that won't hopefully ever go away, right? So that is a good reminder for people that are nervous. Mm-hmm. I'm working with some people right now. They're first-time home buyers. They're really gun shy, and they've been renters for a long, long time because they've always lived in really urban areas. And so to them, renting is just kind of a natural part of life.
What you do.
And so, you know, at the price point that they're wanting to stay in, I tell them, listen, this is a great price point that is going to stay very consistent because people are always going to want to try to get into that price point in this area. So it's just important to understand price points are so different, right? And when we watch you talk about the news being scary, the news is just overall blanket statements nationally and clickbait and want you to feel like the world is ending. I mean, it's almost to the point where it's too depressing to feel informed in the world, if I'm being honest. Yeah. So people have to realize that, especially in real estate, it's micro conversations about what's happening, not only within the market that you're wanting to move into or live in or buy, but also the price point. I mean, the $600,000 price point is very different than the $300,000, and then the luxury price point is also very different as well.
So let's look at that. So I'm looking at priced between $500,000 and $1 million, and it's actually pretty solid. It's going along with the overall, sellers are getting about 90% or 95% of their original, 98% of their last price. So it's actually pretty dang stable in that price point. And then when you start breaking it down even from that, let's go right where the average is, between 6 and 7. Same thing, very stable market, about 4 months of inventory. So that's where you would consider a very balanced market, right?
I mean, I would even argue at 4 months of inventory, that's still basically it's at the very top. It's at the very top of the seller's market. Sure.
And there's too much buyer behavior and too many price reductions to be able to say, hey, it's a seller's market.
That's very fair. And right? that's I think where the confusion is.
There's the data and then there's the behavior.
Yes. And that's where it feels like, we do this all day. And some of the other agents in town that I just admire so much will be very quick to say, this market feels very wonky because the data will say one thing and the behavior speaks another way.
A whole other thing, yeah.
And I think it's very accurate. Correct me if you feel differently, but I feel like a lot of sellers feel like it's 2021.
They do, and so many people are pricing for what they either need, or they're pricing for what they want, or they're pricing to leave room for negotiation. And in a market like we're in, pricing is very critical. The homes that we're actually seeing sell are the absolute best value. All the others are chasing down to figure out, oh man, at what price can I sell my home? Because it's called aspirational pricing, right? They're basing it on what they want instead of going, okay, I'm in a market, I have all this other competition. How do I actually compare?
We want our listings to be the bells of the ball, right? The most beautiful girls at the dance, and sellers are buyers are incredibly picky.
Ooh, they are right now.
And they're finding little things that no one would have even dreamed of bringing up many years ago. And so that's where that disparity is so interesting. And we don't want sellers to feel like they're getting beaten up, but they also have to be very realistic and look at the competition. And so I think it's also critical to say finding that sweet spot can feel really challenging because in our, if we look at the data before we go to market and but we also have to remember that if we need to adjust, we have to do it in the field. And so we need to look at what's happening in the market regularly to see what's upcoming, because that can dramatically change the pricing strategy if another home comes on the market, or a couple other homes, which that's what's happening as well.
Oh yeah. Because there's, whenever you have a consumer that is either scared or nervous, or they just feel like they're overpaying, they're going to be hyper skeptical. And they're going to go only for the absolute best value for them.
Right.
I have a perspective here that I was just thinking about, because I was talking about the 2019. Imagine in a world that in 6 years, you could actually double your money. Now, it's not going to be true for somebody that bought in 21 or 22, right? They didn't double. But just imagine that. You've doubled your money in 6 years. if people can actually step back, and this is where looking at the macro comes in. What actually happened over the last 10 years? And am I actually winning when I thought I was losing? Because when we're in the micro, when we're just looking at right now, it feels, or it can feel like we've lost.
Right.
When we look at the overall picture, we're like, oh, wow. Holy moly. Would I trade that again over and over and over to buy a home for $350,000, 6 years later, sell it for $6,000?
Well, and that's what's so interesting, right? And we see that a lot of times when sellers in their head think a home is maybe worth $700, and we really say it's actually probably closer to $650, and so they're mentally just lost $50,000. In reality, they never really had it because the house won't sell at $700, but they forget, like you said, that they. But
emotionally, we attach to it.
Correct, and that's also, I mean.
And we all do that. It's a human thing.
For sure. But the reality is that's why it's important to be able to have a trusted advisor to talk through those things and really recognize, what's here and what's reality.
Versus what's there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was something interesting you brought up today when we were looking at this, was that overall last year, about 25% of the homes did not sell the first time, which is actually pretty standard.
Yeah, in a stable, in a fair or a stable market, you will see about 25% of the homes that hit the market will not sell for one reason or another, and that's now in a worse market, right? You'll see 35% not sell. In an extreme seller's market, you might see 10% or 15% that just don't sell. And even in 2021 and 2020, all the homes didn't sell. Now, it felt like they did, but there was still about 10% that didn't sell for whatever reason. So for me to see that there's 25% that came off the market without selling,
and
is pretty reasonable.
And let's, I hope I say it right so I don't get corrected online or on the real time. But I mean, that's not to say that some of them didn't go back on the market and successfully sell.
So that's saying that they didn't sell the first time.
They did not sell, right?
Yeah, the first listing period.
Correct.
Yes.
And yeah, there's the myriad of reasons why that could be. And, to go back and see which ones of those actually sold the second time or the third time, we don't have that at hand. But it's critical to really look at pricing, aggressively look at what's happening so that you're not one of the 25% that's still sitting and not getting to your objective. Right. Now that's interesting though too, because, I've had some sellers that they're just really not that motivated. They say they are, but when push comes to shove, they're not motivated. They don't have to move, and they're, that we can't drag someone. We can't force someone to sell their home, and so sometimes that comes into play a lot more than we might realize.
And that's actually really hard on people because even though we say we don't want to move, when you put your home on the market, it gets vulnerable. Emotional. It's a lot, and it gets frustrating.
Absolutely.
And even if you're stretching the price and it gets frustrating.
Seller fatigue.
And then in about 3 to 4 months, you are so frustrated, and it's everybody else's fault. It's the buyer's fault. It's the agent's fault. It's frustrating. And at the end of the day, it's because the market is rejecting our listing for whatever reason. It could be location, it could be price, it could be the marketing's not right. It could be a whole bunch of different reasons, but it gets very frustrating. And a lot of times it happens when we're not talking about macro to micro and how does that affect me and my home. How does that affect my pricing? How does that affect our marketing? What else could we do? Is it a price problem, right? If we're not talking about all of those things, then number one, we really don't know. And number two, it gets very frustrating for everybody.
Sure. I mean, people, it's not easy to get your home ready to go to the market, right?
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's emotionally vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there quite literally. We always say that three things that cause a home to sell or not to sell: condition, marketing, and price. And and marketing, obviously, you want to work and hire someone that has great marketing abilities. Condition is going to affect the price, but really,
those are the two things we control.
Things that we can control.
The price we can't control. The market we can't control, because we can't control what a buyer is willing to pay.
Right. Yeah, outside factors, but we can position it properly to attract as many buyers as possible, and it's tricky right now for sure.
Well, I think that's part's tricky all the time, because there's so much emotion tied into our home, and it's such a big number, right? And for instance, the auction effect, I think we understand that in every aspect except for when it's going to affect us. Because the auction effect is absolutely the way to get the highest price in every scenario. But when it's my home, when it's my money that's at stake, I lose track of that that absolute truth. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
I just lose it because I'm so emotionally attached. Even if I'm not emotionally attached to my home, I'm emotionally attached to the money that I've tied to it in my heart, in my mind. And I lose track that the absolute truth is that condition and price are probably the two biggest variables that drive traffic.
Absolutely. I mean,
price is probably 90% of the variable that will actually drive buyers to your home.
For sure, because condition can always be overcome by price. Right?
Yeah. And that's the last thing that I want to talk about when it's my home.
Well, because it is an extension of ourselves, our homes are, right? And so there's, we all kind of revert to our childhood wounds when we're exposed and having our home on the market and photos of our house and our showing. People come in and see how you have organized your closet or not organized it, or if you're tidy or not. I mean, there's all these things that kind of trigger these emotions that we don't even realize are happening. And so it's
almost like it triggers that fight or flight response. How do I react to life when I'm in fear or when I think I'm going to lose? I go back to that, whatever those deep-seated childhood behaviors are that I never grew out of.
Well, we're all struggling or all trying to grow out of them for sure. Some are working harder than others to do that, but it's really going to be interesting to see what 2026 brings. I feel like we're seeing some activity pick up, and we're people often don't do much during the holidays, and so I'm just excited. I think there's a lot of hope for what's going to happen in St. George, and I don't know. I'm just
there's a lot of hope all the way around, and I'm actually a lot more hopeful than I was last week.
Really?
I just keep expecting the market to adjust a little bit, and it keeps hanging in there. And so it actually made me more hopeful. Now, and that's a little bit crazy, right? Because I think it does need to adjust a little bit to be more affordable. And yet, for that to happen, a lot of people are going to feel the pain.
Well, we're
So,
just, we're in for a wild ride. There is no dull day in real estate. And
Yeah.
when we think we've got it, we, get some statistics to show us that
Yeah.
we're not, it's never boring. And so it's really important that you're working with someone that is studying it and can help you walk through the emotional components of this, because it is not an easy ride. And we're just happy to help anyone. If you have any questions, reach out to the Larkin Group. We'd love to help
Google
you.
the Larkin Group. And thanks for having us, guys. This has been Jesse Paul and Jessica Taggart Marone.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.